Hello. So in this video I'm going to talk to you about Gary Owen's play Iphigenia in Splott, which is a very loose adaptation of Euripides' Iphigenia in Aulis. The play is a monologue play, meaning it has one speaker who gives us the entire narrative through her monologue. Which normally I'm not really a fan of monologue plays, but this is one of the rare instances where I actually think it works really well. It's also an anti-austerity play. So I'll talk much more about that and what the stakes are for that. But Iphigenia in Splott is set in an austerity-stricken area of South Wales. And the character Effie is a sort of street smart, foul-mouthed, urban young woman who drinks excessively, who can't and makes no attempt to hold down a job, who doesn't have access to education, who doesn't have access to nutritious food, who doesn't have access to health care, etc., etc., whose life largely revolves around clubbing, having sex with random men, again, drinking excessively, taking drugs, and so on and so on. She meets a soldier, a one-legged soldier, ex-soldier, I suppose, named Lee, who is a stand-in for Achilles, and she has a very intense one-night stand with him. And so that's one of the components of this character that's actually aligned with the Euripides play, because in Euripides' Iphigenia in Aulis, Agamemnon lures, I guess you could say, tricks Clytemnestra into sending Iphigenia to Aulis under the pretext that she's going to marry Achilles. And so Lee, with his one leg, his Achilles heel, if you will, is that sort of stand-in for the faux marriage to Achilles, because Effie finds out that Lee is actually married with children and has no interest in leaving his wife for her. So that is emotionally devastating for her. But then she finds out that she's pregnant with Lee's child, and after initially deciding to get an abortion, she changes her mind, and she decides that she wants to have the child, and she wants to try and build a normal, stable life out of the sort of inspiration of having this child. She wants it to be her sort of lifeline toward what she imagines to be a normal middle-class type life, rather than the self-destructive path that she's on. So she keeps the baby, but what ends up happening when she's about to go into labor, there are problems with the pregnancy, and so she goes to her local hospital, but there's another middle-class couple there who the wife is also having a baby. And when they find out that there's only one ICU room available, and that one of them is going to have to go in an ambulance in the snow over to the next town. The nice, pleasant, middle-class couple use their social class influence basically to ensure that they get to stay and that Effie is sent in the ambulance. The problem is that the ambulance crashes and Effie's baby ends up dying in the snow after this ambulance crash. So here we have the second really major component of the Iphigenia in Aulis story, which is the sacrifice of a child. So in the original play, in the Euripides play, Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter Iphigenia, and that's like actually sacrifices in the sense of like ritually has her killed, in order to please the gods so that they will send winds to drive his ships to Troy for the Trojan War. In Iphigenia in Splott, we have what I think is a much more complicated sacrifice, because on the one hand we have the sacrifice of Effie's child, and that's the thing that she's sort of most overt about. And she actually says this at the end. So Effie had been planning to sue the hospital because they didn't provide her the proper care and save the baby. But she says here, this last portion of the play, and Nan says, "Do you think money will even help you?" I say, "I know it won't bring her back. I'm not fucking thick." She says, no, listen for once. I said, "Effie, the state you're in, will money help you?" And I know. But then what will help? Because I need something, I really fucking do. And she says, "You know." I know that too. And so I drop the case. I don't make anyone pay. Because there are years and years ahead of me that were going to be filled with loving her and getting loved back. And that broken brick road to the sea not a mile away, I could walk in any day. And what stops me, what gets me through, is knowing I took this pain and saved every one of you from suffering the same. Your baby gets sick, she gets well because of me. Your mom gets ill, she gets healed because of me, and still you see me pissed first thing wandering home, and all you think is, stupid slag, nasty skank. What you should be thinking is, Christ, Effie, thanks. You took the cut for all of us. And I wander home past the pubs that shut, the library they closed, the swimming pool got knocked down, the bingo hall they burned so they could turn it into flats. More and more people packed into this little plot of land while they cut everything we need to make a life. And we can take it. The hobbled soldier limping to his little girl, the fat mum wrestling her buggy out of the rain, the pensioner working night shifts at 70 again. We can take it because we're tough, a lot of us. But here's the fucking rub. It seems it's always places like this and people like us who have to take it when the time for cutting comes. And I wonder just how long are we going to take it for? And I wonder what's going to happen when we can't take it anymore. So here we have Owen's most overt anti-austerity statement of the play. This idea that what austerity means in practice is increasing the suffering of the poor without actually achieving anything positive. A net negative loss for the nation, for the people of the nation, and so on and so on. And so in this sense we get, again, I think a more sophisticated and interesting version of the sacrifice of Iphigenia. So not only do we have Effie's baby sacrificed and her renunciation of the lawsuit, her sacrifice of compensation, satisfaction, revenge, whatever it is, we have a larger socio-political sacrifice of the poor, of urban residents, of the elderly, of the disabled, etc., etc. So all of the people who are least protected by society are the ones who are most at risk of cuts to social services, the erosion of civic life, public life, the erosion of public services, the decimation of the social safety net, and so on and so on. And so we have that element of sacrifice as well. The fact that in neoliberal societies like the UK and the US, we have consistently, since the 80s, chosen to sacrifice the most vulnerable in order to protect the most socially privileged.